Hi, you guys. I'm here to do the portrait. Before we actually begin the portrait, I want to talk a little about the images that you will use for this. You have your free choice what image you want to choose to use. For the sake of this portrait, we don't necessarily need a picture with really good light and shadow. We're looking just for basic proportions and accuracy. So I would try to find an image that is unlike this picture of my face right here, right? Because I'm kind of unclear what's happening on this side of my face because it's so dark. So the first thing we need is an image that clearly shows the face, right? The second thing is it doesn't have to be the front of the face. This actually is really boring to just draw someone like that, or it's also slightly harder because it's dealing with symmetry. It could be easier to try to find an image that's the side view, or it's called three-quarter side view. I'm going to be doing an image that's roughly three-quarter side view. I can see one side of the face a lot, and then a little bit of the other side of the face. But basically what I'm trying to say is there are no rules for your image you get. You could do the front, a little boring, but you can do it, or you can do the side, or anything like that. Up to you. And then the last thing to say is the one thing you do want to avoid, that's probably the most important, you don't want to do an image of someone smiling and showing their teeth. The reason is that there's a lot of expression that's actually going on in that image. And so it's very easy to get that expression wrong and have the person look like they're angry. They're not smiling, but instead they're angry and about to beat you up. Okay, so try to just find an image with the person when their mouth is closed. Okay, once you have the image, you're going to start drawing it. So let's do the demo of that. Basically, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to try to resist doing detail from the start. And we've been doing this all semester long. It's the same, we're drawing the face the same way we drew everything else. But for some reason, when we skip to the portrait, so we have this like, and even I have it, we have this need to like get something really good really quickly, like the eye or the mouth or something. I'm going to try, just like I have been doing, hold back. I'm going to try to block it in, make sure it looks good, and gradually add in that detail. Okay, let's get started. My camera is still missing, so, well, it's still broken. So I'm using this low-tech way, and I'm drawing upside down. Okay, so I have my paper, and I have a pencil, and I also have an eraser, and that's all I should need. So let's do it this way. So I begin by holding the end of my pencil, and I'm just trying to put in the rough shape of the head. And when we draw, we try to include the neck also and a little bit more going on, you know? So I'm just trying to get this like kind of blank shape. This girl's head is not exactly a circle. It's and she has a very pointed chin. So I'm just putting something like that in. I hope, you know what, I'll press harder and that way hopefully you guys can see. But I would not usually press this hard, so, okay. And then the other thing I'm gonna do is a common beginner mistake, and this doesn't make a lot of sense, but some of you will find yourself doing this. We act like we can see the front of the face even when we're not. So I'm going to imagine there's a center line going down her face, dividing the left side from the right side, and I'm going to notice how little I can see of that right side of her face. So I'm going to draw in that center line into my picture. Again, I'm pressing way harder than I usually would. Okay. So this way, this helps me keep track. Oh, it's just a little bit of this side of the face. And then the next thing I always do is I block in I'm going to block in like this is the eye area. And I'm hoping you've already looked at the basic proportions page. So I know this eye area should roughly be halfway down the whole head, right? And so I feel like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to guess where the nose is. And on my image, she has a pretty tipped up nose. So I'm just drawing in the bottom of that tipped up nose. And then I'm doing the mouth as well. And then one other thing to say is her head is kind of tipped at this weird angle. And so I think her mouth is also kind of tipped. And that means her eyes will also be slightly, like they're not going to be totally horizontal. They'll be slightly diagonal. Okay, so step 1, I draw in the outside of the head. Step 2, draw in the center line, wherever that is. If you're doing a total profile side view, you don't need to do the center line because the center line is your outside contour line as well. But any other view, draw in the center line. And then I just roughly divide the spaces of the head. So eye, nose, and mouth, just putting them in. I'm going to take a couple minutes here and I'm going to try to like put in the hairline. I'm going to say I'm just kind of, it's hard to explain, but I'm trying to hold off doing detail. I'm just trying to go into here and draw something kind of like where that nose is, but I'm not so sure about the rest. I'm just trying to draw something in here, you know? So this is the eye area. And then this is her hairline. Probably has to come out, right? Oh, I didn't talk about the ear. If we were in class, I'd ask you guys, do you know any tricks on the ear? And usually someone in class knows that our ear is usually across from our nose. So the bottom of the ear often will correspond to the bottom of the nose. In my picture, that's not true. The bottom of her ear is across from her mouth. I think just because her head's tipped back. Okay. But what you need to know is I'm holding the end of my pencil so I don't do detail. And it's hard because I'm trying to be like very academic. But honestly, what I'm doing right now, and some of you may understand this, and some of you may be like, what is she talking about? But what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of just trying to lightly block this in, but I'm kind of waiting until I feel like it's working. Like I don't feel like it's working yet. I feel like I'm kind of grasping at straws right now. Okay, so this is going to be that one eyebrow. Maybe too close that eye, huh? Push it over here. This is called your philtrum. That's that gap in between your nose and your mouth where you have that little indentation. I said avoid an open mouth, and I feel like this girl has her mouth slightly open, right? I'm just looking at this outside edge, trying to make sure I get this angle correctly. Many of us, because of our skull, if you have any, like when I say skull, I can see it in my mind. I don't know if you guys can, but we have this arch for the eyes, and in a skull, we have an eye cavity. But because of that arch, you can see it actually on the face, on some people's faces. Like it bulges slightly out for that eye part. Okay. I don't know how good this is, but let's try to do something. So let's go in. I'm going to start at the nose. You can start anywhere you want, but let's just start at the nose because I feel like that's the part that's working the best for me. I feel the most confident on right now on how I blocked it in. So most of us, well, a lot of us have this ball at the end of the nose. So I'm going to draw that in. And then in the basic proportions, I talked about how the nose is so difficult for most of us to draw. So I know that if I can, I'm really exaggerating that nostril. I know that if I can get the bottom edge of that nose, which is usually in shadow, if I can separate that, that helps to make the nose feel like it's sticking out. So I'm just I'm looking at where the nostrils are and then also trying to pay attention to that bottom edge. It's hard because I'm trying to press hard for you guys to see the demo, but it's like so difficult to draw pressing hard. Okay, so I'm saying that's the bottom of her nose. And in this photo, like, it's actually kind of weird light, but. And then there's kind of an elegant twist here. So let's try to get that. And then well, there's a couple problems with this photo, but one of them is that that eye is difficult to see. Okay. One of the things, another beginner mistake is going to be doing too long of a nose. This girl has her chin slightly tipped up, so all her features are compressing a little bit. So in my image, the nose is a little closer to the eyes than it might be in your guys' images, but just be careful because our nose is much closer to our eyes than most of us think. The beginner mistake is to put the nose super long. And then when I'm drawing this, I'm trying not to get too exact. The eyebrow has to go up higher, huh? So I'm just drawing in like the eye shape and I'm trying to pay attention to what's the actual iris pupil part and what's the white part. So of her eye, probably half of it seems to be the iris pupil. Not quite sure because there's so much shadow in it, but that seems pretty good. And then I'm also looking at the diagonal of this eyebrow. And then once I have that eye in, I think, oh, whoa, check this girl out. She has total cheekbones that are a little across from here. So let's go, I guess maybe I'll bring this line in a little more. So what happens is I draw my features and then I adjust my contour outline like in accordance with those features. So from the nose to the edge of the face actually feels pretty good. I don't think I need to change that. But I did need to change the eye area. And now let's go down here. I'm going to draw in whatever lines I can. So we talked a little bit about her philtrum. There's a certain shape the philtrum's making, and it's clear on this side, but it's more suggested here. Okay, and then that's going to be the top edge of her lips, which is pretty clear in this picture. Okay, so once I get to the mouth, I'm going to try to give you guys some guidance. Really, what's happening? It's hard to talk and draw at the same time. Really, what's happening is that I did the basic proportions to do a lot of tips and tricks. What I'm going through here is how to draw, but I'm also going to be talking about line weight, making some lines light and some lines dark. because that really is important when we draw a portrait. So when I'm looking at her mouth, I'm going to make, see, it's hard because I kind of chose a bad image where her mouth is slightly open. But I'm going to make the lines that are the opening of the mouth dark. If her lips were closed, I would make that center line of the lips dark. Basically, what I'm saying is, we all know this symbol for the lips, right? And what I'm arguing is that symbol's not too accurate. If I put that symbol on this drawing, it's going to look childish. It won't look right. So I'm trying to tell you instead how to draw the mouth not using this symbol. So one thing is to make this line, make it darker, and make these lines lighter will help make your drawing look a little sophisticated. And then once you have that line or that opening in, go back and look at the actual shape of the mouth, and you can divide it into the lips. So I'm concentrating on her top lip, and I'm thinking, in this drawing, I feel like I have her top lip a little too thick. So I'm going to thin it out a little bit by bringing that mouth a little higher. Now I'm trying to figure out, I think the lips join here, which seems to be right across from that nostril. Okay, I'm good. So I'm saying the shape of her top lip is something like this. And then something else to talk about is that notice in 3/4 view, I have a lot, like that 3/4 view is going to pertain to all of the features. So I don't see the full eye. I can't see the inner corner. I don't see the full nostril, and I don't see the full lip. I only see part of it. And now let's look at that bottom lip. This girl has a pretty full bottom lip. So I'm just going to make sure I get that accurate. And I'm trying, if I didn't have to press so hard, I would try to make that line a little lighter. I'm going to have to add on some to her chin, huh? And this part, like drawing the lips this way, really helps because in your picture, the lips do have a definite shape, you know? And I'm just trying to copy that definite shape. Okay. And then I can also see, like, let's go back with the contour edge. And then let's add in, so for almost all of us, we're going to have our lips stick out slightly and then they go, like our profile line goes back in, and then we have this ball of a chin. So let's put that, like that? Okay, let's go back to this. So this is going to be her side of her nostril. Let's go back to that eye. I don't know about this, you guys. Do I have that going a little too far back, those lips? I'm looking at this compared to this. Maybe a little too far. Let's keep it how I had it the second time. Okay. And then I said in the basic proportions, our inner eye is usually on top of our nostril. So if her head was in a regular position, I could just go from here up, but because it's tipped slightly, her inner eye seems to be slightly at a diagonal. So let's begin it maybe here. And when I draw the eyes, notice again, 3/4 means that my eye, here I'll go through a couple beginner mistakes, right? This is our symbol for the eye. We don't want to do this. So notice when I draw the eye and it's in 3/4 view, no longer is the highest point in the center of the eye, but now my eye is going to be something like this. Even my eye will be in 3/4. Okay. And then, so the highest point will be slightly to the left. And I'm just going to do that trick about looking at the eye and seeing it in terms of white shapes and colored shapes really helps. So her iris seems to be slightly over, in that I can see a tiny bit of white here, but much more white on this section. And notice also that in our symbol, we have the iris balanced in between our upper and our lower eyelids, but in reality, very few of us have that. Almost always, the top eyelid will overlap that iris more than the lower eyelid. And you can look at your own image. So what I'm saying is I can't see the top of this circle because my eyelid comes across. And in a similar manner, almost always our upper eyelid is curved more and our lower eyelid is a little straighter, like it's slightly curved, but not curved as much as our upper eyelid. But this totally depends on the person, so you should look at your image to see how that is. Now, in terms of line weight, I am going to make this upper eyelid with a darker line. We have, okay, so how about I'll say it this way. I can't see her eyelashes. I know they're there. She's wearing a lot of eye makeup. So this is like, if I didn't know about eyelids, I would just be making this a darker line just because of how dark her makeup is. But sometimes students can really mess up their drawing by putting in, like we have this need to put in eyelashes because we think, no, they're there. I'm sorry, my friend wants me to call her. Okay, so instead, what I'm telling you guys is make this line, the upper eyelid line, dark. I'm actually going to raise it a little bit. I think I'm lowering it too much. And the other thing I'm saying is, if you don't and you try to add eyelashes, I'll do it. There's like no way for that to look good. If you really want to add eyelashes, like the one way I know to do it is to do like a frayed line like that, kind of at an angle, but still, I just make the line dark and that kind of takes care of it. She still wants me to call her. Now, if I could really see if she had, I'm guessing she has an eyelid, so I'm making it up, but I would really want to look and try to see, like, what does that eyelid look like? And then the other thing to be aware of, and I don't know how to say this, but we want to kind of be conscious that the eyeball is literally a ball inside our eye socket, and we have eyelids that come and cover this eyeball, so that usually there would be a little bit of shadow from this eyelid covering the eyeball, overhanging it a little bit, right? And then once I have my eye in, I'm going to go back and draw in the eyebrow, and I'm just doing that by the section, that negative space. This girl has crazy eyebrows. I only wish my eyebrows were that good. Okay. And then notice, for those that are going to go on to painting or really love drawing humans, notice that all of us have an eye cavity where we could see a slightly like that hole in the skull where our eye is resting, that there's a slight color change. And that will be true on almost everyone. You can see that slightly if you pay attention to it. Okay, so now that I have her features, I'm just going to go back and adjust her face. Notice also that there's a cheekbone sticking out, which will have a highlight. So once we are shading, I'm going to look for an area of light around here. But luckily for you guys, we're not shading these drawings. So in terms of line, I usually do a broken line just to suggest the hair. You guys can do it your own way. You can do it whatever. Um, and then I'm just going to, this can be a difficult space also. I will get this space just by comparing horizontal measurements. So the tip of her ear in this drawing seems to be kind of below the eye, but not as far down as the nostril. It's actually pretty good where I drew it. An ear can be very difficult to draw, so we're just going to do our best. How you guys are first drawing from a photo, I actually think this is the hardest way to draw. There is life drawing where you would draw from a model, and for some reason, maybe because that's how I learned how to draw, but that's what I prefer. Drawing from a photo is so, I feel like, confusing to me, you know? Okay, and I'm just going to put in her braid. I'm drawing this, and this gap, it feels too much for me. So I'm actually going to go back. I'm a little worried about it. Maybe if I tip that line up, that'll help. And then again, like I said at the start, I'm just kind of trying to forget what I'm drawing, and I'm seeing it in terms of shapes and lines. So I have the curve of her ear, and then I have the curve of her braid, and I'm looking at that gap of space. So I need to move that gap in more, huh? A little more than I have. And then it'll come in even more. So look at my overall drawing. I started out here and then it got more in and more in. And that almost always happens with my work. And I know that. So I start with it big, but then I pull it in as I go. That's just me though, but you should see how you work to try to have some awareness. Okay. For me, doing the shape of the forehead, like the space of it, is the most difficult part of the whole drawing. So that's why in the basic proportions, I talked about dividing the face into thirds because that really helps me. If I know her forehead is basically almost the same size as her nose, that'll help me know how big it is. So first I'm going to check on the image. So her nose is this long. What? It's almost like a finger's width? Oh, that totally goes incorrect if you move it. And then her forehead is actually bigger than a finger's width. So for my image, I have her nose this long and I have her forehead the same size as her nose. So I'm going to extend my hairline up a little bit. And that's a typical mistake I always make. So in some ways it helps to know your mistakes that you always make because I know, oh, I should check her forehead. I probably messed that up. Braids are hard to draw, so I'm trying to come up with some shorthand notation for like hair going in braids. Again, what I'm grading you guys on, it's accuracy. So like the face to the overall head. So you don't really need to worry about drawing braids, but just for the sake of this drawing, I know it'll look better if I can get something that kind of implies braids. So I'm trying to draw it in, but don't get too caught up on it, I guess is what I'm saying. And then we can also look, I'm guessing this is her part, but notice everything is off at an angle because of this 3/4 side view. So this is what? Probably up from the eye. Okay, so I need to move mine over more. Okay, and then we could do like, if I had more time, we could put some kind of mark here for the braids. Okay, and then let's, I don't know, you guys. There's something weird about that chin, right? She has a much better chin than we gave her. Kind of a pointed chin. So let's go down from this cheekbone. I don't think it's I don't think it's vertical. It's ever so slightly diagonal, like kind of in between vertical and diagonal, right? And let's give her chin a little bit more of a point, but then we'll take it back. So I'm just being really careful about how rounded and how straight my lines are, just like I am in any other drawing. So drawing a portrait, again, it's not so different. It's just you have to be way more accurate. Okay. And I think that's our basic drawing. If I had more time, I would want to come in here and do some shading. Like if I did just a little bit, this drawing would look much better, but I don't know. Do we really want to fall into this trap? For your drawing, all I want is a drawing like this, you guys, where we have the basic proportions. The first question is it a human, and does it look like it's pretty much correct? That's what we're striving for. It's just our first time drawing a portrait, so we're just going to try to make it realistic. I'm thinking of in the past, students sometimes, here, let me show my photos. In the past, students, especially those that love anime, have a hard time with the eyes or not making this look too cartoony. So I would say you could always measure after drawing the image. You can go back and actually like compare the width of on your drawing, the width of the eye to maybe like the width of the nose. Are the eyes too big? And then use like the inner corners of the eyes to the inner corner, like to the outside of the nostril. Use measurements like that to try to see what you're doing. If you have a really heavy dark outline, like I did for this demo, that will tend to make it more like animation or more flat. When we add shading, that will help make it look more round. But just know that without the shading, it is going to look a little more cartoonish. So you could go and add shading if you would like, but it's not necessary. Okay, I hope that works, you guys. And I'm excited to see your drawings. Thanks.